As you heard in that last panel, when Danielle was talking about how they're focused on training the future workforce so that they could build on the skills and learn how to reach out and say, ask the older adults and the community members, what is it that they need? And so I sit there going, oh, that's like a perfect lead into our second panel, because as Erin so beautifully said, you know, there's aspirational and then there's making it happen. And so we all, no, I won't go that far. We're certainly learning more and more about what it takes to have a good life as you age. And we're certainly learning how to prepare families and communities and CBOs and organizations about how to engage and be with older adults as they go through the aging process. What we've struggled with is the workforce that can help with that. A sad statistic is in the next 5 years, we're going to need 9.2 million more caregivers in America. I don't know about you, but when I read that, that was a staggering statistic. And I said, I wanted to curl up in a corner and say, Cheerios. Because not only do we want to make sure that we have people to do that kind of work, we also want to make sure they're the right people in the sense of culturally appropriate, have the right skill set, have the right approach, have the right personality to be able to work with someone. You know, if any of you have been in a long relationship, you know, it's hard to ask, what do you want to the other person? Because you may not be willing to do it, or you may not be able to do it. So we need to have deeper skills in reaching out and engaging, but we also need organizations in the workforce that can be responsive and continue that quality improvement. And so with that, you all are blessed with this panel. And I'll let each of them introduce themselves. They are leaders in their own right, in their own agencies, and all of them are helping to make San Diego that special place. So welcome.
Thank you, Steve. I'm Joe Garbanzos. I'm the other ARP fellow in the symposium. Steve referred to Bob Pratt as the main guy for ARP. I'm Bob Pratt's wingman. So managing expectations. So it's a privilege to be moderating this panel. Two ingredients of a successful panel is you need the right topic, A, B, you need the right panelists. And we have the combination of both. So we're already ahead of the game.
And we got a hammer.
And we got a hammer, right. But I would be remiss if I don't ask you to applaud Dr. Yorman and the panel group that preceded us, because I think their message was good. So I wear the hat of state president at AARP, and it's a volunteer work, right? And AARP is a big organization. Many will say, you know, I buy my insurance from AARP, so it can be confusing. But the AARP that I represent, and Bob Pratt, and we have volunteers here too, represent, is the AARP that is engaged in community work, community engagement. So our mission at AARP is to empower older adults to live with confidence and perhaps with ease in the community that they choose to live, right? So it's a very broad mission statement. And I think the topics that we discussed here today are in alignment with AARP's mission. So I'm delighted to be here. I'd like to provide some context around the panel topic, right? Workforce development. So Dr. Yorman set the stage as far as the challenges and opportunities when it comes to the changing demographics. The previous panel talked about transformation. Our panel will focus on who's going to do it. We need people to transform. We need people to manage the challenges and opportunities. So that's the context of our panel discussion this afternoon. The outcome, potentially, I hope that we can achieve from this panel discussion is to provide you with some insights as to what organizations are doing in the respective space to deal with the challenges and opportunities of workforce development, A, and B, provide you with some resources that you can tap into individually as well as your organization who might be looking for ideas and resources to help with workforce development work in your respective organizations. So don't leave until you get the outcome that we promise here at the panel. And panelists, to make sure that we provide our audience with some suggestion ideas as far as what they can take home to help them in their organizations do the work in workforce development. So I am the moderator, so I have the power of the mute. But we have a distinguished panelist here. So the way we're going to structure it is we'll have 3 lines and questions. You can broad, and then each one will focus on how they want to approach it in the context of their experience, the context of their organization. And then we're going to conclude with some resources to share with the rest of the audience. So the first question, and we're going to go through the order of the seating arrangement here, is pretty broad. Firstly, introduce yourselves, a name, title, and we have, I guess, CVs available if you're interested in looking into the hobbies of these panelists. Some of them might be terrific pen pals that you want to consider. So make a note of that. But quick introduction. And the question is broad. I would like you to start with the question of how is workforce development seeing challenges and opportunities in your organization? So start broad, and then we're going to build on that as we have our conversation. So, Brent, I'm going to start the conversation.
All right. So introduction, Brent Wakefield. I'm president and CEO of Meals on Wheels of San Diego County. It's an organization that's been around for about 63 years here, and we serve meals, I like to say, from Camp Pendleton down to San Ysidro and from the beaches to Borrego. So we cover a vast territory. And I'm also president of the State Association for Meals on Wheels California, and unpaid for that part as a volunteer as well. So workforce development for us, we haven't paid enough attention to it. So I'm going to be honest and vulnerable, right? So I've been in this position now for about almost 4 years. In July, it'll be 4 years. So I showed up right when the pandemic was happening, and we had this team in a mad dash to provide meals for seniors when we had a 50% increase for demand for our services in a month. And so that was dramatic. Everything was MacGyvered together, and it was survival mode, so to speak, right? Coming from a very years of hitting the same nail with the same hammer. And all of a sudden we had to do things faster. And now I think because of what the world expects, because the demands of an aging senior population, innovation is important. So now it's becoming more apparent to us that our workforce is the only way we're going to get this done. So how do we motivate, promote from within, while at the same time building our infrastructure? We've had, I think, some successes, and that is promoting from within, I think, is really important. You can see people have moved up. We've had somebody that came in as was an executive assistant. It was a new position that was created, and then now she's managing our whole volunteer force. And that's, by the way, 3,000 volunteers. We use 150 every day, so that's vital. But that happened relatively quickly because she was darn good. And so I think these types of examples, we had a service center director. He was head of the Metro Service Center, delivering food to seniors in the kind of central San Diego area. We created a new program, advocacy. So he's senior director of advocacy and community outreach. And he happens to be the chair of Meals on Wheels California Advocacy Committee, and doing a lot of important stuff statewide. So when you see, I think, trying to inspire with mobility and opportunity, but then you're also restricted by growth and everything. I would say we're nascent in this phase of focusing enough on our developing our colleagues internally. We do allow conference participation. We encourage that. I think that's really important. And then I like when my team comes to me and says, this is what I need. So I think if you are an open leader with an open door, and not top down, you have better chances of hearing the concerns of people. They can be honest with you. We can deal with it and grow together. I think that's really important. But to know that we're wanting, somebody said, I think it's a funny statement. It's cool to be old. Everybody's doing it, right? So it should be cool to be in this environment as well. So we want to be that kind of cool, open organization, attracting, inspiring people that are getting into this field, with openness, open communication, fun, and just kind of those basic recipes. I think that really help make this not this stagnant. You know, I'm going to use my quotes of our building that we're leaving here soon. Right. So if y'all know who Holly Hobby was, remember Holly Hobby, right? So if Holly Hobby married a 90-year-old hoarder and they had a love child, that would be our offices, right? So that's just sad, right? That's a good place to start. Creating an environment that people want to be in. If you come and work at Meals on Wheels, if you're working in a senior space, you shouldn't be punished for it. If you're a volunteer giving your time and you show up, you shouldn't be punished for it. You should be uplifted, right? So there are basic recipes around not just being cool or hip, but being inviting, being cutting edge. And I think that addressing that and putting resources towards it, taking risks, doing fundraising for those kinds of things is important, because this space isn't going to grow when you're working out of the love child of Holly Hobby meets 90-year-old hoarder office space. So there's a lot that you have to address, and you got to be honest with yourselves of what you've got and what you're offering, and you got to offer more. So it's just that's part of the deal.
Excellent. I think that's a good stage setting. And you approach workforce development from where you are as a leader. I think it's an inspiring approach to workforce development. As an HR professional, which is key to workforce development, would like to hear challenges and opportunities from your perspective.
Sure. So I'm Shacasey Rogers. I'm the Senior Vice President of Human Resources at Human Good. Our mission is to inspire your best life, and we take that to mean both our residents and our team members. And I'll just say a little bit about our organization, because I think our name doesn't necessarily clearly describe what it is that we do. Got a little tickle in my throat. Tried to swig a little water before speaking. And so we are a senior living provider, and what that means is we offer affordable housing to older adults, as well as what we call life plan communities. And in those life plan communities, our residents come in and they're assessed. They start out in independent living, and they may progress through continuum of care, which would include assisted living, memory support, and skilled nursing should they need it. We're a nonprofit, and so we have what we call benevolence. So once our residents join us in a life plan community, they cannot be evicted or moved out of those communities because they run out of funds to pay for their care and services in those communities. And so our workforce challenges include, I think, what most people experience, the shortage of staffing generally, but the perspective that we've taken is multifaceted. So to your point, we have what we call an 80-20 rule. So 80% of our openings we try to fill with internal candidates through promotion, through development. 20% we look externally for hires. And then we have what we call grow your own. And we do that primarily through a program we call Good to Grow. And that has 3 levels. The entry level is Emerge, and essentially that's our frontline team members. And we want to skill them with basic supervisory skills so that they understand that we are making that investment in them and we are actually wanting them to progress within our organization. The second level of that program is called Elevate. And so those are our graduates and others who have advanced to a supervisor role or director role. And we begin to tool them with coaching, mentoring, and leadership skills so they can get to the next level. And lastly, we have a program again within Good to Grow called Advanced Leaders. And so that's when we are tooling you to become an executive within our organization. And those are all significant investments that we make in our people. Other than that, what we focused on, again, challenge and opportunity is focusing on total rewards. And so from our perspective, total rewards means everything that we have to offer our team members in exchange for their time, their talents, their commitment, their passion, everything that they're showing up to our communities with. And that's everything from obviously cash compensation, health benefits, 401k, 457B, 457F. But, some of the other things, pet insurance, mental wellness. We have EAP through Health Advocate. So when our caregivers feel stressed, they have a resource that they can reach out to and get professional assistance for free. And that also includes their immediate family members. We also offer education opportunities. We partnered with another 4-year degree granting institution, not SDSU, to provide bachelor's and master's degrees to our team members free of charge to them. I mean, we try to do everything that we possibly can for them so they realize that it's a two-way street. We're investing in them so that they can support our residents. And again, as I said, the mission is inspiring your best life. And it's everyone. It's not just our residents. And obviously, if our team members aren't happy, they can't deliver the level of care and services that our residents need.
Thank you, Scott.
Well, good morning, afternoon. I'm Scott Tarde. I'm the CEO and Executive Director of the George G. Glenner Alzheimer's Family Center. So we're 42-year-old nonprofit here in San Diego, specializing in Alzheimer's day programs and supportive services. I love hearing, the challenges, because certainly we share similar ones. I think what's interesting is everything kind of starts and stops with our mission, right? So our mission at the Glenner Center is to be as affordable and as accessible as possible. So I'll give you an example. We charge $100 per day for adult day specialized services. So this is respite level care from 8:45 to 5:15. So if you do the math, it's less than $12 an hour for specialized care. I would argue that you can't find it anywhere. Home care companies are wonderful, but they're going to charge $30, $35, $40 an hour. So with the incredible increase in the population having some form of dementia, and with the challenges of livable wages and the challenges and just cost of living in general, trying to balance a mission of keeping things as affordable and accessible as possible, and still trying to recruit and retain professionals, I think is probably one of the biggest challenges that we have. And I think what I struggle with is that when you're talking about great organizations like Shacasey's that have skilled nursing facilities and different medical professional type positions, whether it be certified nursing assistants or LVNs or RNs, there's kind of a different track that goes on. Right? These are licensed positions; they kind of command a certain wage. Although we're a licensed healthcare facility, we're not required, if you will. It's not really even indicated to have a certified nursing assistant. It's kind of a different position. So, point of all this is trying to recruit an individual that's kind of a hybrid, right, of a caregiver and like an activity professional, and trying to figure out what that wage kind of makes sense for them to be and how to get that to be a true profession so that they're not using it as a stepping stone, because we often see that, right? We'll see, and there's wonderful certified nursing assistants that do that for their whole career, but there are some that are like, well, I'm going to be a CNA till I become an LVN or till I become an RN. And That's honestly not what we're looking for. We're trying to figure out a path of competency and experience so that individuals can stay at that that profession as a professional caregiver within our environment and still kind of satisfy, if you will, their professional growth and then still meet the objectives of our organization as a nonprofit and trying to keep things affordable and accessible. Because once you start pushing those rates up, it's 140, 150, $160 a day, then all of a sudden people can't afford it. And then they're dealing with trying to figure out things on their home and on their own and at home and potentially negative outcomes. And it's just this terrible spiral and domino effect that I'm sure some here in this room have experienced because it's very, very common. So that I think is our biggest focus, is trying to bring in individuals that we can compensate appropriately and provide strong kind of confidence, if you will, that this is a profession and that we can kind of nurture that profession going forward, including all the other benefits that we certainly try to offer. So I think that's our biggest day-to-day challenge from a workforce development perspective.
Right. So the first round of questions was around perspective, challenges and opportunities. We heard from our speakers that the challenges can range from the economic issues of compensation and rewards, as well as competencies. I would like for the second round of questions focus on competency alignment with the workforce pipeline that we have. Here is, I must admit, a bias. I don't think that the workforce needed now in the future are being trained in our schools and universities. Right? That's my bias. And I think there's room for an opportunity for organizations to narrow that gap. So I'd like each one of you to address that. Let's start with you, Shacasey. How do you narrow the gap between what is required in terms of competencies and the workforce that you're dealing with?
Well, we try to narrow the gap through partnership. So to your point, yes, quite a few of our team members are, CNAs, LVNs, RNs, but many of them, they work in dining. We have, a hospitality aspect of our business. And so reaching out to those community partnerships, to physician groups, other types of facilities, day programs, and aligning with them to identify, how we can assist each other in basically growing these people, identifying people who care and are willing to be caregivers.
Sure.
And then, of course, looking inside, our organization is the result of a number of affiliations of different organizations that are life plan communities or affordable housing communities. And with that, we've created this multifaceted culture that allows us a greater footprint and outreach. And we're in 9 states. So that partnership and making sure that people understand who we are and what we do and how we can help ultimately helps our residents. So I'll give you an example. In our affordable housing communities, we don't have licensed caregivers. We're not providing healthcare services, but what we have done is partner with health plans so that we can enroll our residents in those health plans, and then we can coordinate care for the residents. And so through that partnership, we have been able to train our team members to do some basic assessments, to do the interface with the plans, to ensure that the residents are able to, in many cases, even things like helping them make phone calls to set up appointments. They may just need that basic assistance. And so I think partnership at the end of the day is the way that we're going to bridge that divide. Internally as well, again, we do career pathing. So once we have a team member in our organization, we begin to have those ongoing conversations with them about what it is that they actually want to do. Obviously today you may be working in one of our dining rooms, but you may say, I do want to be a CNA. I ultimately want to be an RN. And so we begin to identify what that career path looks like for you. And so we can partner with a CNA program to help you get certified. Right now, we're trying to build a program that, to your point, takes our CNAs to LVN to RN level. But really that identification, I think, again, is partnership with community and speaking to the people that you have working with you and understanding what it is that they actually want from this work opportunity.
Very good. Scott?
Yeah, great points. I think, so I agree with you. I think that, we have a lot of work to do in relation to, educational support and identifying individuals. I'm biased, as tech product, and really marvel at some of the things that San Diego State is doing to identify the gaps and the needs. And I think one of the things that is really going to be important is doing a really great job of identifying potential candidates out there. I think that oftentimes people will, hop on Indeed or other job search engines, if you will, and they're like, I can do that job, or that sounds like it's appealing to me, or maybe I did, I had some home care experiences. Again, going back to competencies, it doesn't necessarily always equate. And I think we would do well by starting potentially in high school and maybe even before, starting to identify individuals that are, and I'm going to use the word, and it's maybe an overword used these days, professionals kind of capacities, but it's real passion. You have to find individuals that are passionate. Everybody has to make, again, back to livable wages, but you can, and I know everybody in here knows, you know when someone has the personality and the aptitude for, being a caregiver, and specifically when we're talking about Alzheimer's and related dementia, like there are individuals that just have it, and they're kind of proprietary words out there that organizations have developed, like one that I know of that uses the term knack. And so it's like these individuals just have that, ability. And I think that captures it well. And we have to be able to identify those individuals, provide them opportunities early on to get exposure to organizations that provide this, these types of services, and then get them on a path where that they feel that even though they may not be pursuing a degree or an advanced degree or even a professional certification, that this profession still matters and that they can earn, competitive wage to support their families or be part, of dual income families, things like that. And it's just, we are so in need of doing it like years ago, because the amount of individuals that are going to need the service is just going to, we have really almost no idea what this is going to look like in the next 10 to 20 years. I mean, I think we think we know, but it's going to be a lot.
Thank you, Scott. Excellent insight. Brent, I would like you to build on that and maybe approach it from a perspective that, and Shacasey touched on this, that career movement is not a ladder that is always vertical, right? That career can be horizontal, or you can have many experiences that is still fulfilling. I'm curious as to your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's really true. Also, it's true that if it truly is vertical, when you get to the top, eventually you need to move on so other people can go to the top. I don't need to be at the top for 20 years. That's not my goal. And I think that can be a problem in a lot of organizations, right? I'm really good. We've invested a lot. I'm excellent. So I'm just going to stay here. Well, give somebody else a chance to be excellent and kind of move on and find something else to do, maybe still with the organization or somewhere else. So philosophically, I think it's important that the top can move and shift so that people can come up as well. But, we have, for example, in our organization, we're not highly clinical, but we do have a care navigation team. Got colleague back there, shout out Maryland, and they're strong SDSU origins there, which is terrific. And they bring in interns, right? And these interns often then start working for us. So I think that's really important. But some of those interns that started off there come in and they're, care navigators, or maybe they're considering it, but then they find out that, gosh, I want to be a grant writer. I'm more inspired by this other area. So you have the knowledge, the depth, the heart of somebody that could be a care navigator, kind of social worker type of person. Yet you're interested in helping the agency garner more resources, and you can probably really be an effective grant writer if you do have that background. So I think that is important to kind of allow that flexibility, right? So you don't have to be in this one channel. I think that what's important to me, and we were having a discussion with our teaching West, Gary and Mary West Health Institute up here, that if you're not a compassionate person, if you don't have the basic empathy that it requires to be in this field, it's too bad. You probably weren't raised right. Something happened to you. I don't know. You can go learn those skills at a candy shop. So I would gladly move you on. And so those people, that's the only person I don't have trouble firing, because everything needs to move in a certain way. And if you don't have those basic characteristics, you're not good for the dynamic in the team. And I think it's really important to have that sense of community and empathy, and everybody's got everybody else's back and is assuming best intentions when you're at work. And even if you're crabby, you can still listen to people, roll up your sleeves. Just that kind of general culture, I think, is what's allowing both the horizontal and vertical movement in the organization. I think there's a lot to learn from everybody, and just as a hiring practice, always hire people that are smarter than you. And I think that's a really important thing, not somebody that because you want to dominate them and tell them what to do, but that maybe one day they can have your job. Don't be threatened by that. You should be inspired by that. So.
Thank you, Brent. And a confession, I can work for you, Brent.
All right.
So
So I have my job. Good.
So the third line of discussion, and Scott, I'd like you to lead the way. It's in the context of the times, right? We have to be inclusive when it comes to our hiring practices, recruitment, and also be mindful of equity. Right? Certain populations need representation. So in a space where there's already a challenge in terms of the pipeline, how do you manage that? And then the equally important part of the question is, what resources are you aware of that you can share with our group that may help organizations manage workforce development in a more effective way?
Equity, boy, it's not only is it a critical topic, but one that I think not only do we strive for, but really our organization demands, because of the diversity that we have in our participant population. We're seeing a fair amount of Hispanic participants throughout our centers throughout the county, an increasingly amount of Filipino participants throughout our centers. So hiring individuals that are representative of the participants and the families that we serve is obviously critically important, for the obvious reasons, for even just language components. So being able to speak Spanish, being able to speak Tagalog, being able to speak the language that the individual is most comfortable in. So I think there's a big component of that, again, with identifying right employee that again has those compassionate skills, but then has the diversity in their background. And you have to always be sensitive to the fact that a lot of these cultures have struggled historically reaching out for assistance. My days in nursing homes and assisted livings, it was pretty rare to find individuals of those backgrounds in facilities, because that was the kind of the promise, right? That, please don't put me in a facility. And I think that's a really difficult, a challenge for communities to overcome, because I think communities do wonderful work, facilities do wonderful work, but we struggle with, kind of that issue. So I think, going into communities and recruiting from communities, going into, areas in the county that are representative again of the participants that we serve, and that's where we're reaching into and trying to bring individuals into our organization is probably the primary focus. And I think we too can do a better job of doing that because sometimes you know applicants are coming from all different kinds of ways, if you will. And so having that opportunity to do some specific recruiting, I think is something we will focus on in the future and trying to figure out how to best, reach back into the community that way. And I think when it comes to resources, I mean, San Diego County is amazing. I mean, these folks are amazing. We have partnerships with so many different organizations. We work closely with, Alzheimer's San Diego, Alzheimer's Association. Brent and I work closely through Meals on Wheels and have done for years. And so, I think just having those opportunities, we sit on a San Diego Senior Alliance, which is, multiple nonprofits that get together and share ideas. And obviously, again, the work, through San Diego State. I mean, I don't know a lot of communities that do the work that San Diego does. So feel incredibly blessed to be part of the solutions that are out there and the synergy that's there. So that's my number one recommendation is just get involved, because you're going to get, more than you almost could ever give by just being involved.
Terrific. Brent?
Yeah, I love that idea of, working with these affinity groups that your colleagues are already part of, right? It's such a treasure. I mean, I'm okay, Meals on Wheels, California, but my colleague who's a fundraiser is the Association of Fundraising Professionals. And then there are people that are specifically with cultural different organizations that they're part of. Those are really good feeders into the organization, but also kind of can be a little bit of a cultural litmus into what you're doing. Keeping them we engaged Jones and Associates, and they're fantastic. And we did a whole DEI training for a board, and then using them to hire our COO. And it's I think it's just absolutely imperative that you put that as a priority to your organization. And for me, that what was interesting when I first got there, I think there wasn't the habit of putting the faces of who worked there up on the website. There was just one face, and that was the CEO. So week 2, I had a photographer come and take pictures of everybody who was like, associate director on up, and put their faces up there, because it was like, wait a minute, we have an African-American woman with a master's who's running our South County operations, a Chinese-American woman with a master's who's running North County, and all they see is my white face on there. And the people who are getting our services aren't going to relate if every face that they see. And I think so just making that effort, spending the money, and right away being diversity forward and how you present yourself, but not just present and, in substance. I mean, I was raised by my Mexican grandmother, and the face and the name doesn't let you think that I can, I get to go to Televisa and do in Spanish, interview. And that's important. I have colleagues that speak Mandarin and Tagalog and a lot of other languages as well. And, highlight that. We're a melting pot. It's good to be diverse. Celebrate it. Don't brush under the carpet. And my grandmother, typical back in the days, in the 40s and 50s, it was shameful. If your kids spoke Spanish, right? She had to adapt and become American. So my dad and my aunts never spoke a word of Spanish. Sad. My sister and I, she's like, oh, no. We're both fluent, right? And I want that cultural fluency to not skip this generation at Meals on Wheels. I want it to be a part of who we are. So celebrate it. And so and I think we have we formed a culture and engagement community made up of colleagues that does fun things to kind of let them lead. So it's not just me top down, it's them making decisions, talking about things, doing amazing research on things like our sustainability efforts and everything. And I worked at the Salk Institute for 4 years. I've seen like analysis of our sustainability and our carbon footprint. I was like, are you guys Salk scientists? It's surprising when you give your team the ability to lead in their way and with their strengths. Like, again, they're smarter than I am. So let that shine. So
That's awesome. Yeah. Shacasey?
So I want to go back to something you said earlier about hiring people who are smarter than you. I always remember the saying, you don't hire people to tell them what to do. You hire people to tell you what to do.
yes.
And I love that. I also piggybacking on your theme of enablement and empowerment of your team, love the ideas of the resource fairs, the community centers, the affinity groups, and just the networking in general, because I mean, you can go back to 6 degrees of separation, right? If you don't know that person or you're not connected with that resource, chances are someone in your circle or, you know, a step or two removed knows about that resource and can connect you with that resource.
And San Diego is like this big, right?
yeah.
I mean, it ends up being this big. So
Whole
totally.
world, yeah.
And then I would expand on the idea of inclusion and what I liked, what you said, the word appreciation. I think that when you begin to truly appreciate the diversity and not just, you know, demographic diversity, but diversity of life experience, diversity of education, diversity of cognitive ability. When you go down that laundry list and appreciate those aspects of others, it just naturally opens you up to attract more people of like mind, of like energy. And it just creates this momentum naturally. So I mean, I don't want to ramble on that, but yeah, like I say, if you have that in your heart, people see that, they can feel that. And you won't have trouble finding like people.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think we covered the ground. I see a 1 minute sign from Steve. So in conclusion, I would like you to join me in applauding the panelists. I will share the links of resources from ARP on workforce development with Steve and Michelle, and you can post it. There's some terrific resources. And I think my takeaway from the panel is the problems and the dire predictions when it comes to the future of a older population is not inevitable. That there are sensible solutions, including workforce development, including care transformation, that we can all do if we focus on the right things and we collaborate, as opposed to, you know, being tribal about it. So again,
Fun, right?
and have a lot of fun at the same time. Yeah, there you go. It's very important, having a lot of fun. So thank you again. It's been a privilege. Thank you, Steve and the team, for putting this all together and being and making us part of the whole exercise. Thank you very much.